What's a good word, everyone? It's your boy DKB here. I just want to say thanks for all the support. The channel's been steadily growing, and the number you see below, you can drop a text, shoot a voicemail, any ideas, topics, collabs, etc. you guys want to see. I'll include them in future videos and live streams, and I'll catch you again. Be easy. What's a good word, Jets fans? It's your boy DKB here, and the New York Jets, coming off of the trade deadline, are sitting absolutely pretty. Adam Schefter painted a pretty good picture in the spot that the New York Jets is in, right? The immediate thought process, once we understood we have 9 new picks all spread across the first and second round over these next 2 years. That's not even bringing into question whether we decide we want to trade down out of a spot, amass even more picks, right? So you can have this Howie Roseman setup is the comp that I keep hearing here, where he turns 1 pick into 2, right? 2 picks into 4 picks end up turning into 8. You could see the Jets have multiple picks within the first 3 rounds for the next 3, 4, 5 years if they were to play their cards right, assuming they don't stand pat on every single pick here. But whether it's going the draft direction or whether it's going free agency or going via trade, everybody's expecting a significant move for quarterback next year. I don't think there's anything that Justin Fields could do this year to justify him being the undisputed QB1 going into next year. So the wheels start turning, right? What do you do? If it's the draft, you have your Dante Moore, you have your Fernando Mendoza, potentially sellers if you want to go the traits route. All of these different avenues, right? You have Ty Simpson, who's continuing to kind of increase his draft value. If you want to go free agency, tougher discussion, right? But then you start to hear these other names being floated out there, right? You do have what happens if Trevor Lawrence has another subpar season. What happens with Kyler Murray now that he's been benched for Jacoby Brissett, right? Do you try to pull off a trade for him? The name at the forefront of everybody's mind that I keep hearing, though, is Joe Burrow. And I think Adam Schefter did put the upcoming offseason into great perspective, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean that this could happen this offseason, but 2 things here. 1, he made a solid justification for why anybody in the league is open, right? And if you've been paying attention over the last decade, we've had 2 DBs, specifically with the Jets, be able to return multiple first-round draft picks, right? Crazy. You've had the changing of the guard with players like Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Micah Parsons, right? You could make the argument that it's not out of the question to see Myles Garrett get moved maybe in a year or 2. He was already very frustrated with what was going on. So everything that we've thought of when it comes to quote-unquote untouchable players is really just a figment of the imagination, because for the right price, any and everybody could be had in the league. Now, with that said, there's a lot of interesting nuances with Joe Burrow, but this idea, I guess how I'm hearing about it, was floated by Mike Greenberg, longtime Jets fan, of course, but he floated it in the concept of a lot of his Jets community was saying that Joe Burrow needs to be the target, right? And he would bring instant credibility to the position. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. If the Jets were somehow able to pull off a Joe Burrow trade, it's immediately what can they do to stock things around them to recreate a Cincinnati Bengals style offense, right? Who becomes your T. Higgins and Jamar Chase? Who becomes your Joe Mixon and or I'm trying to recall who they have now off the top of my head. Is it still Joe? No, it has to be someone else. It's escaping my mind right now. But nonetheless, who becomes your dynamic trio, right? And then at that point, there are arguments to be made that the Jets are in a better position somewhat than what the Bengals even currently offer. But let's get into some of these quotes specifically, right? So Adam Schefter, as this conversation around Joe Burrow and the Jets potentially being able to trade for him and stuff is going on, here's what he says. We have the New York Jets in here with 5 first-round draft picks over the next 2 years with the capability of doing whatever they want at the quarterback position. We have the Los Angeles Rams sitting here this offseason with 2 first-round draft picks. We have the Cleveland Browns sitting here with 2 first-round draft picks. We have maybe an extra quarterback in San Francisco. You're raising a question about Joe Burrow. There's questions in Arizona. We're still waiting for Trevor Lawrence to prove himself. This is a league that has always had quarterback questions. This now, as much as ever, feels like an arms race with teams positioning themselves to make big moves for quarterbacks, whoever they are, whenever they are. So there's not this overwhelming statement of, hey, Joe Burrow is definitely up for sale. There's definitely a possibility it could be the Jets. And there's nothing saying, hey, that idea in and of itself is insanity, is idiotic, and go ahead and sweep that out of your mind. It's not happening whatsoever, right? Again, for all the examples that I just posted out there about untouchable players that have been able to get moved, situation's sour, right? One of the saddest thought processes in my mind for the league just as a whole is Joe Burrow being forced to retire due to medical concerns, right? Due to this continuous injury history he's starting to build up. 6 years in the NFL, don't forget, first overall pick in the 2020 draft. 3 of those seasons ending due to severe long-term, severe long-term injuries, right? Season-ending injuries. And it is in certain levels of concern, right? You're talking about the leg, you're talking about the wrist. So that, I feel like there was a small concussion history there as well. But when you think about the Andrew Luck PTSD effect, it's very easy to think, not only has he been one of the most sacked quarterbacks in the league since coming into the NFL, he has been one of the most, if not the most, hit quarterback since coming into the league in 2020. And the Cincinnati Bengals have never been able to find a way to piece together the wall in front of the man so that he can do work. And with that said, he is still undeniably an MVP caliber player at his position any given year. Now, obviously, it helps that you've had Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and you built up the supporting cast for him to be able to throw to. And it's even that much more impressive to me, considering the fact that he is quite literally always running for his life as a guy that's not known to, be a dual threat style type guy. But there could be parallels here, right? Obviously, it's not exactly the same, but if you're Aaron Glenn, you find a way to get Joe Burrow, this guy that's been to a former Super Bowl, right? Has the MVP discussions under his belt, all pro caliber player. You're bringing him in with a lot of the same, let's just call it, in qualities and intangibles as what the Detroit Lions had with a Jared Goff, and you're getting the elite tier of elite tier, right? Even with Jared Goff, there were questions, right? Why didn't he fit with the Rams? Why did they decide they wanted to move on with him? What were the limitations with him being more of kind of a pure pocket passer? And you're going to get to a much smaller degree some of those same questions, but it's mostly around what would the limitations within a new offense be, because quite literally, the Bengals have failed Joe Burrow, not the other way around. You can even go as far as saying the health concerns, the injury history and scare is because of the Bengals and their inability to find this offensive line. The Jets know this same problem, and for once in the bluest of moons, the Jets seem like they finally found the answers, right? You have Mimbu, you have Fashanu at the tackles, you have AVT, who you can still roll the dice on, and at least when he's on the field, there's no question marks. Joe Tippmann, you feel really comfortable with, whether it is at guard, whether it is at center, but give him a true home. And John Simpson is kind of that alpha, aggressive, warrior mentality you really need on the offensive line just in general, to really, kind of bring that iron wall mentality, if you will. You have Garrett Wilson as a wide receiver 1. You have a budding Mason Taylor. You can still look to improve that tight end spot by just getting a pure receiver in the mode of someone like a Brock Bowers, or think kind of like the Elijah Arroyo mode of player, if you will. Think about Sadiq in the upcoming draft if he decides he wants to declare. Not sure if he has eligibility or what his situation is, for example. But nonetheless, you can make the argument the Jets have a better defense than what the Bengals currently have. You can make the argument that the offensive line is better than what Joe Burrow currently has. And then you can definitely say that maybe Garrett Wilson isn't on the tier of Joe Burrow, but we've never seen him reach his peak because the quarterback performance has always been subpar, and he still is in the conversation of, at worst, being a top 10, top 12 wide receiver in the league. He could legitimately challenge the entire record book if Joe Burrow is throwing Garrett Wilson the ball. On top of the fact that because you have all this draft capital, it should be 1,000 times easier for you to have the opportunity to go out there and draft your version of T. Higgins, which would operate as another wide receiver one for you because you're probably pulling him in the first round of one of these draft classes, right? Think about 2027, for example. Jeremiah Smith is coming out. There's a list of other names that you could be really excited about, and things start to get even crazier, right? Now, with that said, I think from a draft value, a trade compensation package standpoint, you're probably talking about something insane, I don't know, Herschel Walker level, type compensation. Probably 3 first-round picks, probably a couple second-rounders, probably even a mix of a third and a fourth or something like that thrown in there, and potentially even players back in a trade like that, right? I would still say that most people would probably jump at the opportunity to still pull off that trade. I would say if we were just calling it black and white, let's say it doesn't have to be this absolutely crazy trade. Let's say 3 first rounders get it done. I think I would still opt for that. I feel like I would still opt for that, right? And at that point, you're still talking about having 2 first rounders, probably 1 in each class, and you still have your seconds. Get the job done, right? At that point, if you solve the quarterback situation, 90% of the problem is done. You can luck or find your way or buy your way into the supporting cast is going to be necessary to take advantage of someone like Joe Burrow. Now, he does have to make a contract, right? He does have the injury history. All of that stuff, definitely very valid. The one kicker to this whole thing as well that wasn't brought up in any of the conversations I heard about is he does have a no trade clause, right? So there's a few things from the Joe Burrow point of view. One, is he pissed off enough with Cincinnati that he would even want to leave the franchise, right? That's where everything begins since he has this no trade clause. 2, let's say he does demand a trade. Let's say he is ready to leave. The Jets obviously can put together the most enticing package, again, from a draft compensation standpoint. But can the Jets market and sell themselves enough to convince a Joe Burrow level prospect that the future of his career is in good hands, even with the value that we're giving up to get him, for us to still build a supporting cast around him, for him to still continue his career healthy, because we do have a much better offensive line and we still feel like we can build this team around him. And obviously you're going to sell the winning is nothing better than doing it with the Jets in this New York, New Jersey market. The AFC East, you could argue, is going to be a much lighter division than what he is accustomed to. You have the Bills. They could be fading at some point. Of course, Josh Allen is always going to keep them in it, but you have to wonder whether they continue to draft correctly and find the right kind of players to put around Josh Allen so he's not becoming a one-man army for them for the remaining, 7, 8, 9 years, whatever it is he decides to play. The Dolphins, self-explanatory, right? Spoiled goods at this point, right? That seafood's bad. It's probably going to be bad for quite some time. And then you have the Patriots with Drake May there. But, there's always the chance that we play these guys pretty tough, right? Especially if AG can live up to the classic division rivalry here. There's a lot of good, there's a lot of bad, tons of pros, tons of cons with this whole situation. But I do find it the most intriguing that, 1, again, you can't really shut this down. 2, if it does come to this arms race, as Adam Schefter pointed out, the Jets are unequivocally in the best position to pull something like this off. And then 3, just personally here, I've been probably for the last 3 years, right? I've been personally sick of us always feeling like we need to kind of buy our way out of this, right? And even trading for a player like this, I consider it the same thing as going out and spending $1 billion on free agency. I hate the fact that we have to go out and essentially buy our way out of a problem. If that's the way it needs to get done, that's the way it needs to get done. But it would be a much better perspective to me that you finally found a regime, a duo, a front office head coach tandem that could identify the quarterback that they love, find the way to put the supporting cast around him, develop this guy, and you keep your own person for 2 decades, right? 15 plus years, whatever it is that looks like. But my priority would still be the draft. I would fully understand going after Joe Burrow, though, and I would be head over heels for the idea. But let me know what you guys think, because, again, it's a far-fetched thought process, but we've seen some of the craziest things happen in just the last couple of years. So I think if I put a percentage on it, I would say 5% chance right now this is even a discussionable topic, but it's going to be fun nonetheless. And as Joe Burrow watches how the Bengals regress, and you see what continues to happen with guys like T. Higgins and Jamar Chase and the defensive struggles and the offensive line issues and stuff, things could sour, things could change pretty quickly. So let me know what your guys' thoughts are. Joe Burrow's in a future world, an alternative path in a green and white Jets uniform. What do you think? I'll catch you guys again. Peace.